Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Andy Y. West, author and speaker, author of Dopamine Mountain and Anhedonia, Wastelands. And we'll be talking about her, about especially on her breakthrough journey of overcoming chronic fatigue and anhedonia using powerful yet simple dopamine. As we learn about how one can reorder their daily actions, reshape their mind, mood, and drive today itself. Welcome to the show, Andy.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Andy. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll learn from you hacks about dopamine, how one can transform their life with those things. But before that, let's understand a bit about your journey, your background, Andy, so that people know who they are listening to.
Yes, so I was basically forced to write this book because I had struggled for years from long COVID and fatigue and anhedonia, which is basically like depression, although it's the chemical form of depression. So I was also struggling with ADHD symptoms and executive dysfunction and just trouble with time management. So basically I had to do something. And it was really a struggle to figure out what to do because doctors didn't seem to be able to help me. Supplements weren't helping me. And it turns out that there was something wrong with my dopamine reward system. And so people might not really know what dopamine is. It does many things, but the main thing it looks after is our mood and our motivation. And so when we strive towards something with motivation, that is dopamine. So although it has a very wide range of things in the body that it looks after, those are the ones that we really feel the most. And so I was basically looking for some way to fix myself when nobody else could. And that's basically what brought me to this topic.
Absolutely, Andy. So help us understand about this dopamine thing. You have done a lot of research, you've written the book. How should one understand this dopamine? Everyone has got this function, this sort of a thing in their body, this mechanism, God gifted, and everyone uses it in one form or the other. Even the reward system that you talk about, for a very rich person, it can be a new car, new house, new nothing, holidays and all. For a simple person in a village, it can be just a piece of, cake, cookie, or even a bit of chocolate. And that can be, So I want to understand then, how does this dopamine work strongly in some people, less in some people, and where actually the problem comes in? When does it become bad? I hope it is good because God has put it through our system. When does it become bad?
Yeah, excellent question. So when our dopamine is rising, that means we are feeling good. And when it is dropping, we are not feeling good. So the things that raise our dopamine are things that feel pleasant, feel pleasurable, and things that we want and things that we work towards. And things that make our dopamine drop are unpleasant, painful, and difficult and challenging things. And so all of us have a range of where dopamine will go up and down to, and it's moving up and down all of the time. So if someone says something to us that's nasty, that's going to drop our dopamine because our mood has gone down and we feel low. But like you said, if we get a piece of cake or something, if we go scrolling on our phone, these are things that are pleasurable or exciting or novel, and they raise our dopamine. But the problem can happen when we have too many dopamine highs in a row. And when this happens, say we wake up in the morning, we might have a coffee or a tea and some sugar, something sweet, and then we might do some scrolling on our phone or on YouTube. And if we do all these pleasurable things in a row, it can be quite damaging to our dopamine reward system because we have basically rewarded ourselves for doing nothing. So when we reward inaction, we will get more inaction. If we reward a low mood or inactivity, we will just get more of that. So we probably realized that when we were younger and we wanted something, just say we're a little child and we want to get the ball, we have to crawl over to get that ball. So we have to apply effort first, and then getting what we want is the reward. Although now, because a lot of us have the privilege of getting things that are fast and easy, we don't need to apply the reward first. So we can often just wake up and have many of these high dopamine things without an equal amount of effort first. So this is really damaging to the system. And the way we get around that, and one way that we can moderate our intake of pleasurable things like sugar, for example, is to make sure we always do something effortful first and then have our dopamine reward. So for myself, I found that when I woke up and did something really challenging first thing in the morning, like a difficult run, although to be honest, it started out as just a walk because I was having fatigue and I was really struggling just to have the energy to go for a short walk. But for me, that was hard. So I'd wake up and do that straight away and do other hard things. And what that does, it pushes my dopamine down on purpose. But then just the relief of ending the difficult or challenging thing is enough to make dopamine rise afterwards. So one way that we could think of dopamine is like a helium balloon. This is just a very simple analogy, but it means that if we've done many things that have stacked our dopamine up and it's hitting a ceiling, there's only so far our dopamine can actually rise to. Once it's hit that ceiling, it cannot rise anymore because we only have a certain amount of dopamine receptors. And that is going to become our new normal. So all of those pleasurable things are going to feel bad because that becomes actually the new low. And the brain is looking for something else that might be able to raise our dopamine even higher again. And that's just not going to happen. And so the way that we want to fix that, if we want to rise from the helium balloon, ironically, we actually need to lower it first. So if we are in a low mood or we're not feeling great, I'm not talking about sickness, but I'm just talking about mood here. If we are feeling very flat, unmotivated, or blah, so to speak, we can actually do something effortful and challenging to lower our dopamine. And then, like a helium balloon, if we pull it down, then when we let go, it will actually be able to rise. And there is actually a dopamine hack that will supercharge this rise. Then after we do the effortful thing, if we add a dopamine reward after that, and I'm talking about something safe, like a small amount of sugar or something we've been wanting, like maybe a snack or a coffee or something that we want, then that will not only have the dopamine go down, but then reward it. So the dopamine rises relatively higher than what it actually would have. And so this is one way that I was able to, and it's not my own protocol, it's just that I've put together a number of protocols to make this actually work for me. And this is actually what did pull me out of the biggest rut of my life, really, because I had no idea how I was going to get my energy and my motivation back. And it turns out this actually led to discipline, which is something I had struggled with. So now I know how to do discipline.
Right, Andy. We'll come to your book also. We'll talk about it, what we can learn. But let me understand it in much more simpler term. See,
Sure.
when God made us, at that time He didn't know that there will be, mobile phones, that there will be Mark Zuckerberg and he will create this social media, other founders who will create social media for quick dopamine. He created a system, if I understand, that make that effort, get that dopamine into your system, get that reward, and then go and rest. And again, you got what you needed. It is just that we became perhaps lazy, and then we got this easy dopamine hits for ourselves. Then we started going into that direction. And whenever we are not getting that, we feel low, and when low and high without any middle ground. Is the laziness, or whatever way we want to put it, the real reason of all these dopamine fluctuations or mismatch or requirement, however we want to. How would you like to explain that to humans? Because earlier also people used to get, where did they get that dopamine, required dopamine earlier on, Andy?
Yes, that's an excellent question. So our ancestors, when they woke up and they needed something to eat, and this is the same in the animal kingdom, our ancestors couldn't just go to the refrigerator and have a snack. So they had to get up and apply effort. They had to hunt or gather something or farm something, and then they were able to have the dopamine reward, which is the food. So this is the same way all throughout nature. When an animal wants to move towards something, which is our dopamine motivation, there is that thing they're moving towards, which is something pleasurable, which is the food. So then once they have that effort and then the reward of the food, they need to rest and digest. And so this is why the sequence of effort first and then reward and then rest is so important for our dopamine reward system. And you might know people who burn out all the time. They work and work and they're always go, go, go. And they will tend to burn out because they're actually not allowing themselves enough reward. So we need to balance these two things in order to have this system working properly. We need to make sure if we're overexerting, to stop and have a reward and then a rest. And this will stop burnout because we need some self-awareness to make sure that if we've pushed ourselves too hard, have a reward and then have some rest and then start over. So we can actually cycle through these kinds of activities all through our day to balance out our energy and to make sure at night then we will have a better rest if we make sure we do some effort, especially some exercise in the morning. The first thing in the morning is the best time, in my opinion, to do some exercise while we've got a little bit of natural dopamine there. And so if we make that exercise first thing in the morning hard, then the rest of our day will be easier. It's just logic. If we make it the hardest thing in our day, then everything else will be easier, or that will likely to be easier because sometimes things pop up that we don't expect. But just doing that hard thing first thing in the morning has been absolutely life-changing for me, because now whatever exercise I do, I just make sure that it is hard, but it's not extreme. And then I make sure to give myself a reward, and that way my brain would like to repeat that activity. And then I just find it easier to do the next time.
Absolutely. Now let's learn a bit more through your book, Dopamine Mountain. Is it an easy mountain or is it a difficult mountain that you talk about? Andy, help us understand what is this book all about? What can people learn from your?
Yes, so the mountain is an analogy for anything challenging. So if you want a beautiful view from the mountain, or if you want to have a fun slide down the other side on a toboggan or something like that, you need to first do a little climbing. So we need to put in that effort, and we can think of our challenges as something to work towards so that we can enjoy the equal benefit of sliding down the other side or enjoying the view, or sometimes even just the journey itself, just the act of looking around on the mountain, seeing who we might meet along the way or animals, and just enjoying that process. So in my mornings, I like to go for a run up the hill. And it's actually a beautiful time of morning to go out and to see the mist and to see the animals and the birds out there, and just to have a little bit of time alone. I actually really enjoy it now, although to be honest, I did not enjoy it at first. It was hard, and that is why it worked. And it still is hard. And again, this is why it works for me, because like you said, when we become lazy, we don't appreciate our challenges and our rewards. But another thing is the brain actually starts to atrophy if we don't use it. So if I stop making challenges for myself and I stop being disciplined and I stop initiating action, the brain actually stops being able to do these things. It deletes those circuits of learning, And it goes, well, I can just get my dopamine from a very fast and efficient source. And that might be, a chocolate bar or something like that. So the brain will actually prioritize chocolate bars or scrolling, and we actually lose the ability to initiate and to take action, and the motor cortex of the brain starts to suffer. So we need to keep our ability up and practice doing hard things, like practice doing difficult and challenging things if we want to keep our brain and body sharp.
Absolutely. So, who is this book for? Everyone needs dopamine, but do everyone need this book? Who is this book for?
If people are active and happy and their dopamine reward system is working well, they don't need to read this book, although they might find it interesting. It's basically written for people like myself. It was written for me 4 years ago, where I did not know how I was going to get out of bed or motivate myself or even have any amount of energy to go about my day. It's for people wanting to understand the mind a little bit better and how they can be the master of their dopamine. So we don't have to be a victim of our dopamine anymore. If we want to learn to initiate and to move forward and to stop procrastinating, what we need to do, we know that we need to break down our goals into little steps. Everyone knows this. But what they forget to tell us is that we need to reward each little step. So if we just get out of bed, if that's really a struggle, we need to reward that and realize if it was really hard and we succeeded, some kind of small reward, and then go again. So reward every step. And that is how we turn action into discipline.
Absolutely. One thing you talked about, Andy, is about depression. Now, many a times, if I understand, and correct me if I'm not correct, that many a times we feel low, we feel a bit. We can try and put that word depression here. We may not. Everyone individually looks at themselves differently, but then there are serious cases also of depression. Do you think people should think that it is about dopamine, or is it about real cases where you need, doctors to come in and help you? How do one analyze this or calibrate these aspects of our lives, modern lives?
Yes, it is both. So people can definitely take steps to enhance their own dopamine reward system, like exercising early in the morning before any other dopamine spikes and that sort of thing. But also people, if that's not working for them, they need to also seek medical advice as well, because many of our mental health problems are dopamine related. So although we can take some steps, some people might need extra help from medication. But personally, I did not ever use medication for depression. I was lucky enough to find ways that I could regulate that myself, because a lot of the time what a medication will do is it will either give us extraneous dopamine, exogenous dopamine, which is just adding dopamine to the body so that then we can get things done, like in the case of ADHD. Another way is for cases of depression, sometimes there will be SSRIs, and what they do is they stop both serotonin and dopamine from being flushed out of the body. So they stay around longer. So we basically have more access to those neurotransmitters. And so that's also just a chemical way of having more dopamine. So personally, I would try the natural way to do it with our behavior first, to modify our dopamine by doing those hard and challenging things and then having a reward on top. And if we still struggle, then it's probably time to seek medical advice.
Absolutely. One last question I want to understand, Ed, is about the social media. And if I understand, a lot of people get their dopamine hits by scrolling. Now, how do we manage? It's difficult to leave it. For a lot of people, it is work also. Many people work in this. There's different lines. They need to monitor it also. They need to be aware about it. How do we make it that it works for us, rather us working, as tools for the social media or that part of dopamine? How do we calibrate that part?
That's a good point. And so, what we need to do is understand the difference between our social media use that we are getting a pleasure from, so some personal scrolling and just looking around on there, and to differentiate that from if we work in social media, for example. So, we need to understand what is work and what is play. So when we want to go on social media, we need to, if we have to work in that industry, make sure we have a list of what we need to get done, and then maybe say 4 or 5 minutes of free time after we've done the hard work first to do some looking around on social media. But I would personally suggest, if we're getting negative messages from our social media, to not use that account or to unfollow those people. Because if we're getting messages of pessimism or people who make us feel like we have low self-esteem, I don't feel like we should follow those people. I don't follow those people. I follow people who are optimistic and uplifting and want to challenge themselves and want to share their wisdom with the world, like yourself. And I really appreciate what those people do for each other and the world, because everybody is equal in their ability and their potential to share beauty with the world and to share optimism and light with the world. So when I say beauty, I'm talking about inner beauty. I'm talking about what makes us all human and what makes us all one family. So everyone has the same ability to do that. So we're all very, very important to the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, for the sake of our public audience, if you can show your books, you have written 2 books to the people so that they know, okay, these are the books we are talking about. So, one is the.
So that's Dopamine Mountain. Now, it looks thick, but it's not as thick as it looks because there's 800 and more references in the back. So that's just to back up some of the ideas and the science in there. And I also have Anhedonia Wastelands. And now that is a mini book for people who are stuck in depression and anhedonia. So it just gets straight to the point of some actionable steps, basically what we've talked about here today, where people can read that and just take some steps to move out of being very stuck in their life. So that's much shorter, and it only takes around 30 to 60 minutes to read.
Absolutely. There's much to learn about all these things from you, Andy. And I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn about your story, your journey, and also learn from your books. What is the best way for them to do so?
They can find me on dopaminemountain.com and also on Instagram and Facebook under the same names.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.